Thank you, Brenda. And I love that. We are fierce, right? That's really great words to start the morning with. So again, thank you so much for coming and being with us today. I'd love to see a packed room. I want to thank there's so many people that make this day work. We have amazing panelists, moderators, sponsors that you see here previously, volunteers. Without them, this day would not happen. And of course, all of you coming and our government partners, thank you so much. I'd also like to thank the Marriott staff who really work with us day in and day out to make this event a success. And lastly, I want to thank the dedicated staff of the network. We do this all in-house, all 23 workshops, and they pay attention to every detail of the morning. If you're in the room, can you stand and wave? If I see any, they're probably out all doing something, but thank you. And I also want to especially thank Joelle Balam-Schwan, Cynthia Stewart, and Kim LaBeach. Without their really guidance, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you, network staff. So a few weeks ago, I read an interesting piece in the New York Times about an acclaimed social entrepreneur and her efforts to transform the welfare system in Britain. In her new book, Radical Help, Hillary Cottom writes about one parent, Ella, and her struggles to really gain stabilization. She had 73 professionals working with her, with over 20 government agencies, if you can imagine, and yet she was stuck in a continual cycle of disconnection from work, from school, domestic unrest, and housing insecurity. One social worker assigned to her teenage son actually spent 74% of his time doing paperwork and 14% of his time with her teenage son. And when he was with her teenage son, he would ask her questions. He would ask the teenager, you know, have you smoked this week? Did you go to school this week? And basically was checking off a list. So you can imagine, not very effective. All told, this family, the cost was 250,000 pounds, or in our currency, $300,000, with no measurable success. Cottom makes the point that social services today are often designed to manage needs and not to build capabilities. That welfare systems are meant to be temporary structures that are ill-suited for today's complex and prolonged struggles. But Cottom's work is about shifting the paradigm. In a pilot program, Ella was asked to lead a life team, and she got to interview and select 8 professionals that she thought would most help her family. The professionals spent 80% of their time with the family, as opposed to doing paperwork, and they worked on addressing her immediate issue, which was an impending eviction notice. And then, eventually, she was able to secure a job, then the kids got back into school. The programs that Cottom helps design in Britain are about designing networks that empower individuals and families to identify their goals and then building networks around them to continue to support those goals. Sound familiar? Right? It reminds me a lot of supportive housing and the person-centered approach that makes it so successful. An approach that again and again points to the positive life outcomes that can happen for our tenants and supports them to get there. And of course, along the way, it's incredibly cost-saving to provide someone a home and a caring case manager versus a myriad of expensive systems. Cottom's work is illustrating in new ways the lessons that we have learned over decades here in New York State. It reminds us that the legacy of traditional and paternalistic welfare is very difficult when trying to transform the system, but it invites us to take stock in our community's progress. So how are we doing? In the midst of an unprecedented commitment to build supportive housing, thanks to our city and state partners, I am inspired by our development and social service community, who continues to challenge the odds and create beautiful, dignified, and welcoming housing for those who far too often had no place to call home, who were made to feel invisible and unwanted. The development climate keeps getting harder, and we keep finding ways to overcome it because we know how much a home means to someone who has been denied that right for so long. It is a stark contrast to our developer and chief, a man whose bigotry and callousness seems to know no limits. With recent proposals to deny federal housing assistance to mixed immigration families, jeopardizing 55,000 children who live in those apartments, and allowing federally funded shelters to refuse services to transgender people are just chilling examples. President Trump wants to make fewer people eligible for health care and welfare assistance by basically changing how we measure poverty, a gross misrepresentation of our welfare as a community by, in essence, cooking the books, right? You can't make this up. As we have done many times in the past, we will pull together to fight these cruel plans moving forward. At the same time, we can't let Washington's very low bar distract us from our own work. We know that fighting for equity and justice also means doing the hard and uncomfortable work of investigating our own biases and system flaws. When we look at the homelessness crisis, we can't deny the overrepresentation of people of color and LGBTQ young adults. We can't deny that gender-based violence is a driver of homelessness. Racism, sexism, sexuality, and gender-based discrimination and bigotry are all embedded in our society and our institutions, even in a liberal bastion like New York. The supportive housing community, however, has been a beacon of acceptance and a vehicle to transform lives of people that have been marginalized for over 3 decades. I am extremely proud of the work that we have done, that you all have done. But in order to truly realize the possibility of a more equitable world, there is so much more to do. We are thrilled to feature panels today that will deepen the conversation about structural inequity and strive to make supportive housing the welcoming and warm space, the affirming space that it has long been for all individuals. I hope you have an extraordinary day today. I am extremely and very excited about the variety of workshops, and they will all be, some of them will be videotaped, all of them will be recorded, so if you miss anything, you can hit up our website in about a week and see it all again. And the day ends with a cocktail reception at 5 p.m., so please join us, and thank you. So we are so pleased to have with us today Jason Reynolds, award-winning author and poet. Jason's bio is in the program, so I am not going to read it, but I know that after today you will want to pick up many of his books, as we have done in the office. We've had great discussions after reading them. In Jason's book, For Everyone, one of the books that we got, a note to the reader was tucked into the cover and speaks to his process of writing and some of the reflections that he developed along the way. I'd like to read a few of the reminders because I think they really speak to the work that we do. A reminder that easy and difficult are irrelevant concepts when it comes to chasing a dream. A reminder that dreams are like maps for the adventure of life. A reminder that having a dream is as much connecting to someone else as it is as having a fear, so you might as well have a dream. A reminder to remember what it felt like when you found it and when it found you. A reminder to keep your reminders close. A reminder that the human experience is made better when, despite the odds, you jump anyway. Please join me in welcoming Jason Reynolds.